Welcome to AlexGs Aquarium, everybody. Today I've got a massive update on the 4,200 gallon display. I'm so excited because I have glass in the aquarium. Finally, after more than 2 years of building this aquarium system, I can now finally say that I have what resembles an aquarium now. And seeing this glass in here is just so unbelievable to me, and it's actually kind of hard to see too because it's low iron 3/4 inch glass and this stuff almost doesn't look like it's there. Today's video, I want to talk about the logistics and the challenges of getting this glass into the house and into the aquarium, because it was by far the biggest, most stressful and nerve-wracking job that I have had to do with this build thus far. I don't know if it'll be topped. Even filling the tank is less intimidating to me than what this job was. And I really think it's important to share how this process worked, because it was not simple and deserves its own video. In this video, I'm not going to talk about my glass supplier. That'll be a separate video. I really want to go through the process I did for vendor selection, why I selected the vendor I did, and give my review of that vendor. So that'll be another video. Let me set the stage here. So with this order of glass from my supplier, the very first challenge that I received was that they will not ship the glass to my home. They would ship it to a freight terminal near my house. And that freight terminal is just a few miles away, but that represented its first challenge. And this is kind of what goes through my head here, is that I could go get a truck, I could get the glass loaded in the truck, I could bring the truck home. I have no way to get the skids of glass off said truck because together they weigh over 2,800 pounds, and the big pallet, which had the 12-foot sheets of glass, was 155 inches by 4 foot by 4 foot and weighed 2,100 pounds. I can't get that off a truck, and I can't use a lift gate really either, because that's just not long enough to accommodate a 12-foot pallet. So I need pallet jacks or a whole bunch of people, and I was really going, what am I going to do here? I really was hoping to find a logistics company that could get the glass from that freight terminal to my house and deliver it onto my driveway, or better yet, into my garage, and then from there I could get the glass sheets into the basement with the help of some friends. That was my initial plan. Now, I started calling a few different logistics companies. They started pointing me towards specialty movers, so I went that direction. And I called several different moving companies and had many of them promptly say, yeah, glass? No. Large sheets of glass? No, we're not interested. And some of them I was like, I almost want to be like, your website says you'll move anything, and you move grand pianos and all this other stuff. You won't move glass. What gives? I ended up finding this company called Blackhawk Moving and Storage. They're out of Sycamore, Illinois, which is about 30 miles from where I live. And I started talking to them, and I kind of opened that conversation a little different with saying, hey, I have these large pallets. Here's the weights. Could you guys get them to my house? And then I also said, would you be interested in potentially taking the contents of said pallets and bringing them into the house? And I requested a quote. So they called me up, and I promptly because they're like, well, what's in these pallets? We really like to know. And I was like, it's sheets of glass. And I heard a little bit of a hesitation there, and I said, well, hold on, they're not like jagged edged or anything. They're going to be packaged up, they're polished, they just weigh a lot, and it's only 9 pieces. I said, it's a big thing. I said, if you could at least get it to my house, I could take it from there. And so we discussed what was going to be happening, and the gentleman there was very nice. He goes, well, let me get a quote together for you. And he goes, we do all kinds of weird stuff. And he goes, this is right up our alley, because he's like, sounds like a cool project. Like, we want to be part of it. So they sent me a quote, and I accepted it. I felt it was reasonable, and I'm not going to talk pricing here with any of this stuff because those things constantly change. But I felt it was a very reasonable amount of money to do this job, and it was going to be that they would pick up the glass from the freight terminal, bring it to the house, unload it from the truck, bring it into the aquarium and stage it where I asked them to, and then haul away all the materials that came with the packaging, the pallets and extra cardboard and styrofoam. And I thought that was a good deal. So there's going to be 4 guys and a truck, and if needed, they would get a forklift. With movers hired, I was happy that I had the logistics end of this glass move completed. But that was just the first challenge. There were many other challenges that I had to overcome. And the next one was, how do I get the glass in the house? I've now got a way to get it here now. I will preface on here is when I bought this house, I have a staircase with a landing, and the ceiling is over 12 feet tall, so a 12-foot sheet of glass should fit in that stairwell. The problem is, if this represents my sheet of glass, I'd have to take it down the stairs, and it would basically sit on all the stairs. We'd have to stand the sheet up, flip it around, shimmy it over, and then turn it again, and then we'd have to pick it up vertically and then slowly start going down the stairs into the basement. Now, it could be done, but it was going to be a very involved job. I was pretty much thinking I was going to have to build like a crane, like a little gantry crane in the stairwell with a chain fall or something so that we could lift the glass. And then I would need to make a crate to put every piece of glass inside a wooden crate, because a 12-foot sheet of glass, you do not want to stand that vertical and be above a person's head. I needed to be encased. So that was a big concern I had with is this the right way? Another method that I came up with was I could punch a hole through the garage wall into my stairwell and another hole through the side of my stairwell, and basically make a narrow ramp that we could just take the glass on edge, slide each sheet in, and it would be all good to go. It'd come down here, and then we just have to carry it into the tank. That was a cool idea too, and it would have probably worked, except I think my wife would have caused physical harm to me if I knocked holes into our brand new house. So that idea got scrapped a little bit too. And then it actually was, while I was about a year into this build, my dad was in town and he looked and he goes, hey, have you thought about the escape window, about getting the glass through that? And I looked at it and I said, I thought about it and I wasn't sure if it would really fit. Now with the escape window idea there, I said, I'll just have to wait and see if I could fit that piece of glass through there or not. And when it came time to start ordering all my glass, getting all of the sizes I needed, I made mock-ups out of some scrap wood of the longest sheets of glass that I had. And I popped the escape window out, and I didn't think I would clear the window well when I put that test piece through, but it cleared the window well and had plenty of room on there. So I was really excited because I said, this is perfect because I can just take the glass and have a ramp system here to bring the sheets of glass right in from outside, no stairwell, and just bring them straight into the tank. You can't get a cleaner entry into this job for the glass. But there was also an enormous challenge to bringing the glass in like this, and that was how the sheets had to be moved in. Where I was going to do the staircase or through the wall, I was going to try and keep my sheet nice and vertical the whole time. But to bring it in through the window, I was going to have to lay these sheets down on their side. Now I don't have a ton of experience with it. Actually I do, because this weighs more than a ton. But I have a little bit of experience with glass, and one of the things that you always see is when glass is getting transported, it's always vertical. It came vertical on skid. You see glass trucks that are driving around on the highway where they got the big sheet holders on the side. They're always sitting there holding the sheet of glass up almost vertical. That's because glass is incredibly strong in that direction. And a good example of this I'll show, this NRP board here is going to represent one of my 12-foot sheets of glass. Now, if I take this NRP board and hold it straight out like this, it will stay in shape and it's just fine. However, if I take this and I turn it sideways, it folded down. It can't support its own weight horizontally. Similar to glass, it won't support its weight. The difference is the glass would simply just snap and shatter. So horizontal with the glass is very, very precarious. And I knew that it was not going to be as easy as just having a ramp and taking the glass and flipping it over and sliding it down. I was going to have to support the glass in a horizontal state so that I didn't have to have that concern. For this, I ended up deciding that I would build not just a ramp, but a sled that went on a track of that ramp to hold the largest sheets of glass. So I took OSB in 3/4 inch and 2x4s on edge. I built a frame and a big sled with 2x4s as a backstop, so that when the glass is on there, it can't just slide off, it's stopped there. And then I made a ramp out of 2x6s that were 14 feet long, braced it up with 2x4s to make a little track, and then supported it in the window well and in the house between the tank and the wall. So I took this sled concept, I put ropes on it, and the idea was fairly simple. You take the sheet of glass, you get it to the sled, you lay it down flat, it's then supported, you then lift it up, slide it down the track, you've got some ropes behind there to guide it, and then when it gets to the bottom, I would put a dolly at the bottom and allow it to roll right off. Now the only concern with this was that when the glass sheet hits the bottom of the ramp, it will start to lift away from the ramp, which is going to create a potential of a breakage this way. Now, despite being on 3/4 inch OSB and 2x4s, I was still a little concerned that being 12 feet long, a sheet might not be able to withstand that, even in a small amount of bend. So as it would come down the ramp, I would have a person on each side of it to just cradle it in the middle as it went down, and then I'd put another dolly on the back end of it so then you could roll the whole sheet off. That was the method for moving the glass in. Now, when I made my ramp, I will say I did test it a few times just by myself, and the ramp, I actually needed to secure it better between the wall and the tank and the window well, because even the weight of the sled was kind of pushing it forward. So I had to really lock that structure together. Once that was done though, it didn't have any problems. Sent pictures of that to the movers because when I told them about this ramp and sled idea, they were very intrigued by it, but they were like, yeah, we really need pictures of that, which totally understandable, because I'm sure from their perspective, they get people that say, oh, don't worry, I'll have something ready for you. And they get there and they go, yeah, you're using 1/4 inch plywood to support, 360-pound piece of glass. I don't think that's going to work. I did send them pictures and they came back and said, that's one hell of a ramp. Now I'm set, and I did this as soon as the glass order went in. I did not wait. So the movers were hired right away, and I got this glass sled and ramp ready right away. The next thing was getting my seal surfaces ready. So the bottom seal beam of the tank and the top seal beams, I went ahead and sanded them all roughly with 60 grit sandpaper just to rough that pond shield up. I also did a very fine inspection for high spots and for areas that weren't flat and the way they were supposed to be. As soon as I found those, I went ahead and sanded them. I only had a handful I found that I had to sand down to fiberglass, and then I recoated with pond shield and did a subsequent follow-up sanding. But with this glass, there's a couple other things that need to be considered. One, these sheets of glass are no joke to handle. The big 12-foot sheets of glass, they weigh over 360 pounds. Working next to them and beside them or trying to move them, there is always a risk that you could get hurt. They could shatter, and if you don't have these pieces of glass supported at all times, you're really not being careful. If I was working on the bottom of the tank, let's say, and the piece of glass was unsupported and it just fell over on me, Well, it could crush me, it could lacerate me very badly if the glass broke, and it could even kill me. This is not something to play around with. You gotta be real safe with this stuff, which is why you see on the top of my tank here, they are just 2x4s all over the place. And the whole idea of those are they are the support system for the glass right now. These 2x4s are preventing the sheets of glass from being able to fall inward. And I've got a couple of them that are just firmly on there and some that are a little more loose in case I decide I need to move a sheet. Very simple construction. It is a single 2x4 that I just chopped a little more than a foot off of it, put it on the ends with a couple of screws so that it just holds the sides of the glass on either end. Very, very important. Now I made all of them to be a pretty loose fit, and the idea was with these is, one, they're going to be used when the glass arrives here. Now the second piece of this is when the glass gets sealed, this is also going to become the support frame structure to hold the glass. 18 of these top braces are on here. I don't have all of them deployed at the moment because a lot of it's having extras is always a good idea. And I've got a handful of 2x4s along the bottom that are just holding the pieces of glass at the bottom from moving. Now, I'm sure you might be going, well, if you got a piece of glass that weighs 300 pounds, there's no way it's just going to slide around. We don't want to take any chances here. If something's slipping, falling, hurting me, or one of my pets, or anybody. So, maximum safety here. And I used a lot of styrofoam that came with everything too, is just supporting and padding. With glass supports here, there are a couple more items that need to be taken care of. And the next one that I wanted to take off of my list of preparation steps was spacers. Now, all of the DIY tanks that I built, the glass sheets have always rested on 1/2-inch PVC sheeting. And there's a couple reasons I do this. One, when I am going to seal the glass in place, it just gives me the correct height to the seal surface. I want a 2-inch seal on the top and bottom of this glass. The bottom seal beam is 2.5 inches tall, so I've intentionally built it that way to accommodate these spacers. Now, these spacers also are critical in helping me be able to easily move these sheets of glass. There's a lot less friction on them. They're not abrasive. They're not going to damage or scratch the glass. So I could drag the glass on here, and I could say, with years of experience now, I've never had a problem with these spacers being problematic. This is a buoyant material in water, but it won't matter because it's got a giant sheet of glass holding it down. The final reason for these is leveling. Unlike my original plywood tanks where I kept the glass face down while it's sealed, for these tanks, the glass is going to be vertical, and having each piece of glass be perfectly level with the ones next to it is very important. And while I built the stand, the top bracing, the canopy, everything is level in a plane, the actual bottom of the tank is not. And the reason is, with all the fiberglass and epoxy, there's some areas that have high spots and low spots. So most of the glass is pretty close, but some of it is going to need a little adjusting. So I'll take these PVC spacers and I will shim them however I need to in order to get the glass exactly where I need it to be. I space these out approximately every 2 feet on the glass, and I cut a whole bunch of extras and had them staged up and ready for the movers to come. Suction cups. Pretty self-explanatory here. I got a pair off of Amazon. All I can say is these things rock. And now that I have to move these sheets of glass around periodically, I might have to slide them, move them out slightly for things like cleaning. These have become invaluable to making this an easy job and a safe job. You're not trying to use your hand. You got something with some decent grip. Now this is a lot of prep work, and I was like, wow, I got it all done. And then I go, oh wait, there's one more important thing. I need to be able to get in and out of this aquarium once the glass is staged up, and so do the movers. And you'll see I have a giant step stool that I built here. There's another one on the other side of the tank that I'm showing a picture of now. And with these step stools, I added these in so that I could easily get in and out of the tank once the glass is in, so I'm not trying to go over the top of the glass. It's not the best way to do it. And I did design these top aquarium brace beams to have somebody compressing them down constantly. They're just not made for that. With that in mind, I designed this step stool to make it easy for that ingress and egress out of the tank. And that is pretty much all of the big prep work that got done. At this stage of the game, I went ahead and did several practice runs in the night before the glass was showing up so that I knew where each piece would go and how we'd get it in. Then the big day came. It was a lovely day here in Chicagoland. It was in the 40s. It had rained the day before and it was drizzling a little bit that morning. But I met the movers at the freight terminal, and the very first thing that I did when I walked in there is they handed me the paper and said, "Please sign." And I said, "Well, hold up. I need to inspect my shipment first." So they took me out to inspect the glass, and I went ahead, did that, and checked everything as thoroughly as I could. I did not see any damage from shipping, and at that point I went ahead and I signed for it. So from there on out, they went ahead and got the glass, loaded it in the truck, got it home, and subsequently we started moving it. I briefed all the movers as to what we were going to be doing, how we were going to do it, and we just started going. So they started with all the 6-foot pieces, got those in, then they moved into the others that were like 107 inches, and when they got to those, I insisted, I said, we got to use the sled, because they had just slid the others right down the ramp, which was fine, but for these big sheets, I said, we got to be careful. Those are the ones that could potentially snap if we pick them up wrong. So from there on out, we used the sled and the ramp. It worked wonderfully. The 12-foot sheets were pretty challenging for them, and they did manage to get them in the house. The next challenge we had was just making sure that we were measuring each piece and putting it where it was supposed to go. So we started off, we got the 6-foot pieces here, then we got the 12-foot back there, the 12-foot here, the 12-foot there, and then those other two shorties there, that 12-footer, and then we got the end cap on. So everything went pretty well according to plan. Now when we started unpacking the glass, it had been sitting in a truck in a warehouse at 40 degrees. All the glass had condensation on it, and we did manage to use the suction cups to our advantage with this. So the glass was packed extremely well, where it had 3/4 inch styrofoam on each side, and then it was wrapped in cardboard. So for each sheet of glass, we kept it on the sled, and then we'd roll it into position. We'd take everything off of it on one side. So the cardboard and the styrofoam, we'd have just the glass there, and it was fogging up pretty good. So we take the suction cup, stick it on the glass, and then the 4 movers and I, all of us, would go ahead and kind of team lift the glass up right onto its spacers. We got to one of the end caps here and would try to put a piece of glass that was too big into a smaller area, and suffered one minor chip on a corner. And I also had 2 other sheets that had some minor corner chips on. And with that, that's where we're at 95% according to plan. So the 3 glass chips that were received during the move, I looked at them and I was trying to see, okay, well, what exactly is going on with it? So nothing had a giant crack running through it. Nothing had big scratches. We had corner chips, and I knew this could be a problem, and I anticipated this could happen. I'm just going to flat out say it. This is an enormous job. I anticipated glass chips as a possibility. So, big difference though when you're hauling individual sheets of glass versus a fully made aquarium that gets a corner chipped or smashed, where it's already assembled, and yeah, unfortunately a lot of times it's junk. You just can't do anything with it. But with these sheets of glass, I took those corner chips I had each one of those sheets flipped to where the chip was put up to the top. all of these corners and seams on the glass are going to get double jointed. So they're going to have they're going to have a corner joint, a butt joint, and then there'll be another plate of glass that goes over the top of them that's 1/2 inch thick. A little tiny piece of the corner being gone is not going to cause a problem. I went ahead and I was like, yeah, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. So I ended up grinding those 3 chips out and just used the same abrasive blade that I use for cutting fiberglass. Turns out it works really good at grinding regular glass. And I just had to really take my time. I did it very slowly. Each chip took me about 45 minutes to grind out. And then I sanded it and then did high resolution photo inspections of it with my camera, took pictures, looked at them, checked with lights, everything I could to make sure that there were no running cracks or other chips in the glass. And when I was satisfied it was all good, those are good to go and there was no problems there. So overall, the move itself went really good. Those little minor chips, these things happen, and I anticipated it. The movers did an awesome job. I couldn't have been happy. They'd never moved sheets of glass, and I know every one of them individually came to me and said, I will never forget this job. And I'm really happy that they did a good job of the moving. I didn't make any claims on the glass or anything. There was no reason for that because it was something that I anticipated could happen. So that's moving. A lot of stuff had to happen in order to make this work, but I gotta say it really worked out well. I had to kind of come down after going through this because honestly, and this is no joke, I really had anticipated that a sheet of glass was going to get broken. I had already mentally accepted that will happen. 3 chips, no problem. I hope everybody, could take something away from this as far as the challenges go. So with the glass in place now, it's just staged roughly where it needs to go. I need to install my cross braces on the tank and get them tensioned up properly. I also need to install my 1/8 inch spacers between all the sheets of glass and kind of do a dry run fitting to make sure every sheet of glass is exactly where it's supposed to be and is lining up good. Once I am satisfied we are good to go there. From there it's just going to be practice runs of silicone on some scrap, make sure I'm happy that that's all where it needs to be. If it is, I'm going to go ahead and hopefully in the next few weeks seal this tank, and then it becomes a waiting game for it to cure. Well, that's a video for today. If you liked it, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you've got comments or questions, go ahead and leave them down below. Now, if you want to see more, I do post a bit more on Instagram, and I've also been sharing a lot on the Reef Beef Discord channel. It's a really great reefing community there, and I'm really enjoying it. So, thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you on the next video.